Hello, sickos. What's up? Welcome live from the doghouse. It's Wednesday night. I think I'm going to start doing this on Wednesday nights. We've got the Monday show. We've got the Sunday watch-alongs where I watch the final round of the PGA Tour event and hang out with you guys. And I think we're going to add to that little diet a little Wednesday night show. I'm not committing to doing it every week, but typically the way this goes is I do something once and I really enjoy it and I do it every week. So we're going to talk about the Canadian Open because the world never stops moving. Stuff has happened between Monday and Wednesday. But first, before we get into all the news, we're going to talk about Rory. We're going to talk about Rory doing his first press conference since before the PGA Championship. Obviously, Danny, my boy, says Matt Carrillo, Joseph Boza, you know it's a big day in news if we are getting a third Down on Golf podcast of the week. I'm going to talk to you guys throughout this. If you're watching this, please, I want you to like and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. It makes a really, really big difference for us. Okay, let's hop into the news. So the first piece of news this today that I want to get into was Rory McIlroy doing his first press conference from the RBC Canadian Open. I was supposed to go to the RBC Canadian Open. I was actually really excited. It was going to be my first time ever going to the Canadian Open, and I'm a huge National Open guy. You know, I think I've always said throughout the entire, Liv PGA Tour negotiations that if we could just get a tour of National Opens, that would kind of solve all of golf's problems, because I feel like they have so much energy and a proud history, and you move them around different golf courses. I love National Opens. I really wanted to go to the RBC Canadian Open, but something happened. Not something happened. That's a really dramatic, nothing happened. I'm going to go to Travelers now instead. There's a couple business opportunities for me there, so I'm going to go to Travelers. And obviously going to the U.S. Open next week, so it wasn't 3 weeks in a row, back to the East Coast, back home, back to the East Coast, back home, was a little bit much. So I am not in Canada, and maybe if I was in Canada, I would have asked Rory McIlroy about the Jack Nicklaus situation, about not calling him and what went into his decision to do that. He was not asked today, but I was very surprised that he was not asked today. But he was asked about not speaking to the media. So Rory completes his dream. Wins the career Grand Slam in super dramatic fashion. It's weird. It's one of those like big sporting events that sort of feels like it was yesterday, but also sort of feels like it was 2 years ago already. It was less than 2 months ago, but he completes the career Grand Slam, sixth guy ever to do it. A first major in 11 years, gets the monkey off his back, just like euphoria. And then he kind of disappears for a little while. He goes back to London, or he went to London, and he went back to Belfast in Northern Ireland, went home to see his family. And didn't see anything from the celebration, which I thought was incredible. Like in this day and age, to not see a single cell phone video or anything like that, I thought was amazing. Then he comes back, plays with Shane Lowry, tied for seventh. He plays at the Truist right before the PGA Championship, ties for seventh there. I don't know. He was top 10 with Shane, I thought, or he was around contention. And then put up a bit of a stinker at the PGA Championship. And there was a couple pieces of news that came out of that. Number one, he didn't talk to the media at all. After all 4 rounds, he was requested after all 4 rounds. The way it works, and I can tell you because I've been there before, a player finishes, there's a media official, and you go up and you say, I'd like to talk to Rory McIlroy. And they say, okay, we'll make the request. Typically, it goes to the agent. And whether the agent answers or talks to the player first, that sort of depends on the situation. But he was requested all 4 days, declined all 4 days, and then a piece of news came out that his driver was non-conforming. Actually, our Ryan Barath on Scratch reported today that Rory switched into, because of that, he had to go to his backup driver and then decided to switch into the new QI35. He was in the QI10 for a while before that, but he switched to the QI35. So he doesn't speak to media for all 4 days, doesn't speak even after that happens. And people, he's the number 2 player in the world. He just completed the career Grand Slam. You have a lot of people feel like you have an obligation to talk to the media, even if you're not playing super well. And so people were throwing around, there's the rumor mill's been kind of churning in golf recently. Something must be up with Rory, between not speaking to the media and between, not calling Jack Nicklaus to tell him he wasn't playing in the Memorial, and then just the mere fact of not playing in the Memorial, something must be up with Rory. He was actually in really good spirits. I watched his whole press conference. I want to play the bit where he talked about not talking to the media.
Yeah, look, the PGA was a bit of a weird week. I didn't play well. I didn't play well the first day, so I wanted to go practice. So that was fine.
That's a way that guys very, very often, if they don't want to talk, they can go to the range, and then it's like, oh, we went right to practice. He was so angry that he went right to practice. They don't talk. That's how they get out of it. I'm glad you're doing this because so much has happened since Monday, since Matt Carrillo. I am here, and that is the reason that I am here doing this. Okay, let's go back to this.
Second day, we finished late. I wanted to go back and see Poppy before she went to bed. The driver news broke. I didn't really want to speak on that. Saturday, I was supposed to tee off at...
I mean, he's basically telling you just didn't want to. There's no like, there's always a reason every day, but he's basically just saying that he doesn't want to. And we're going to keep talking about that because he explains why he's able to do that in the end.
8:20 in the morning. I didn't tee off until almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Another late finish. Was just tired, wanted to go home.
Just didn't want to. And we're all leading up to the point that he makes at the end about this not being mandatory, but he just didn't want to.
And then Sunday, I just wanted to get on the plane and go back to Florida. So
didn't want to, just wanted to go home. And I get it. There are times where I, just want to go home, and he's going to talk about why he's able to do this. I'm going to spoil it's because it's not mandatory. And maybe you almost wonder, like, is he doing a little covert thing here to make it mandatory? Maybe I'm just reading way too far into this and like looking into the best possible explanation for this, or being a Rory stan. But maybe he's like sending a subliminal message: you have to make these things mandatory or we're all going to stop doing them. I'm not sure. That's probably the benefit of the doubt, but let's keep going.
From a responsibility standpoint, look, I understand, but if we all wanted to, we could all bypass you guys, and we could just go on this, and we could go on social media, and we could talk about a round and do it our own way. We understand.
That's a little bit of like you need us more than we need you, because we have the power. And this is a whole thing. I mean, this is not to get too like deep here, but this is one of the reasons why I switched sort of career paths from traditional journalism to more commentary stuff, because they're right. Just writing a story about what a guy said is not very interesting to me anymore, because the guy can just say, you can watch a video of him saying it, you can watch a highlight of him saying it, or if the guy had something to say, himself, he'll just go ahead and say it. But let's keep going.
Understand that that's not ideal for you guys, and there's a bigger dynamic at play here, and I talk to you guys and I talk to the media a lot. I think there should be an understanding that this is a two-way street. And
you guys notice that like creaky noise in the background? It's driving me crazy.
As much as,
that is, I haven't listened to this all the way through. That creaking noise is insane.
We need to speak to you guys. We're sort of, we understand the benefit that comes from you being here and giving us the platform and everything else. So I understand that, but again, I've been beating this drum for a long time.
Here it is. This is the whole crux of the whole dynamic here, and this was the same thing with Colin Morikawa not talking after Bay Hill. Joseph Boza said this is the same thing Colin said at Arnie's. He wanted the media to chase him after Russell Henley stole Arnie's from him. Golf Hack says, yeah, Wednesday night we're here, baby. Wednesday night, let's do it. Get used to it.
If they want to make it mandatory, that's fine. But in our rules, it says that it's not, and until the day that's maybe written into the regulations, you're gonna have guys skip from time to time, and that's well within our rights. I've skipped my fair share of media requests over the years, so it was nothing to do with that. It was just some days you don't feel like talking.
He was saying it has nothing to do with the Liv situation and kind of getting burned on that. But I mean, what he said at the end is sort of the beginning, middle, and end of this whole topic. As long as it's not mandatory, they're gonna sometimes they just don't want to do it. Every other sport, it's mandatory. Would it be nice if everyone had the Arnold Palmer, I have to be there when I play well and when I don't play well? It'd be great. That's obviously not how the guys feel nowadays. So it's just such a simple stick. Just make it mandatory. Strategic Sports Group has invested all this money. Stuff is changing with the tour. Stuff that is much more significant than this has changed with the tour. They have decreased the size of the tour itself. They've created these no-cut events, with 70 players, and it used to be 125 guys got FedEx status for the next year. Now it's only 100. It used to be 30 from the Corn Ferry Tour. Now it's only 20. Those are significant changes. So I don't understand why they don't make a very simple change of just make it mandatory. It's so simple. Just make it mandatory. Zach Eisenstein asked, Dan, are you in Toronto? No, I am not. I explained earlier on the show. I was gonna go, but travel plans changed. Yo, Dan, Gator asked the tournament and asked the hard questions. There was another question that was not asked today that I couldn't believe wasn't asked. We'll get to that in a minute. We got a lot to talk about. We're gonna talk about Gordon Sargent. We're gonna talk about Luke Clanton. We're gonna talk about Sahith by a stair. We got a lot to talk about today. Something else that Rory said in his press conference actually, to me, was even more interesting. I know I led with that because it was the newsy bit, and he talked for the first time, and what he basically said was, I didn't want to do it, and it's not mandatory, and that's what he was going to say. I found this bit to be a little bit more interesting. So Rory's been okay since he came back from winning the Masters. Tied for 7th at the Truist. I think he was like 40-something at the PGA, so actually for Rory, that's a really bad major. And then with Shane Lowry at the Zurich, it's hard to tell, but he was the player of the year for the up until through the Masters, right? He had won the Players and the Masters, won the first two biggest tournaments. all was sort of going his way. Matt Carrillo asked, what do you think about the RBC course this week? I've never been there. I don't know, but it looks beautiful from the pictures that I've seen. And now I've lost my train of thought. Now I've completely lost my train of thought. Oh, he was the player of the year. Yeah, I got it. He was the player of the year up and through the Masters, won the first 2 tournaments. That's shifted, right? Like Scotty has won the Memorial. Rory didn't even play in the Memorial. Scotty won the PGA going away. Rory was sort of a non-factor in the PGA. And you often wonder after a guy, I'll just play the clip and then we'll talk about it.
I don't know if I'm chasing anything. I would certainly say that the last few weeks, I've had a
So the question was, you've completed everything. What keeps you motivated?
couple of weeks off, and going and grinding on the range for 3 or 4 hours every day is, maybe a little tougher than it used to be. Just, you have this event in your life that you've worked towards, and it happens.
So he's saying it's harder to practice than it was, and it's a very honest thing to say. It's different than like a Tiger Woods. I mean, Tiger completed the career Grand Slam at 25, right? So if that was his goal, and I think the way Rory won it contributed to this feeling. Like, I'm sure when Rory won the third leg of the Grand Slam in 2014, his goal in his career wasn't to complete the career Grand Slam. It would have been to win, to probably, chase Tiger and chase Jack and try and win double-digit majors. But the longer it went on, the more that this career Grand Slam, and especially the Masters being the last one, became this carrot at the end of the rainbow. That is a complete bastardization of a timeless idiom, but I'm sorry, you'll have to stick with me. It was a light at the end of the tunnel. That's a better way. It became such a monkey on his back. I'm just rich with idioms today. Metaphors, idioms, I'm not sure. And he finally gets it off his back, and then he has this massive exhale, and he's admitting that he's had this massive exhale, and I can understand that, right? Like, imagine you're trying to take your company public or a CEO, he's been building this company, and sort of in the back of his mind, his white whale has always been, selling the company to Microsoft. And then you sell the company to Microsoft and you kind of look around and you're like, well, what's going on now? What do I do now? And there's this very famous story about David Duval winning the British Open as the #1 player in the world. So as high as you could possibly go in golf. And he's on a private jet on the way back over, and he looks at his wife or whoever's in, and he says, so is that it? This is it? And we all know what happened with David Duval's career, and there was injuries involved. And I'm not saying that the mentality was what, led to David Duval having a steep drop off. But this is not the first time that a golfer has admitted to basically saying, like, he said this at the PGA, and it's not me in tracks. He said, I've achieved everything I've wanted to achieve in the game. He said, I grew up wanting to win all the majors. I've done that. Now, could Rory win this week? Absolutely. Of course. He's won the Canadian Open a million times. He's still Rory McIlroy. He's like, he doesn't have to have his brain fully there in order to win PGA Tour events. It's like breathing for him. But I found this interesting, and we're gonna continue with the clip.
Happens. Sometimes it's hard to find the motivation to get back on the horse and go again. So I think the last 2 weeks have been good for me, just as a reset, just to sort of figure out where I'm at in my own head, what I want to do, where I want to play, and reset some goals. I thought it was a good time to reset some goals.
Where I want to play. If you guys, we talked about this on the show. He's playing like basically all National Opens for the rest of the year. National plus the Wentworth BMW PGA Championship, which is the flagship event on the DP World Tour, plus Dubai, but a lot of National Opens. He's going to go play the Australian Open. He's playing the Canadian Open. He's playing the Scottish Open. He's obviously playing the US Open. He's playing the Open at Portrush. And that's actually, now that I think of it, that's got to be motivation in and of itself. You're playing an Open Championship in your home country, and your home country is like the size of LA County, maybe even smaller. Like it's right there. He's from County Down, and I believe, and Royal Portrush is in County. Like, it's right there. It's not far at all. And the last time he played the Open there, the only time he played the Open there, he missed the cut by hitting. Remember, he hit 2 out of bounds, I believe, on the first hole, made like a 7, and then shot 60 something, 66, 67, missed the cut by 1. So that should be motivation in and of itself. But let's let this finish.
I've had a pretty good first half of the season, and I want to have a good second half of the season now too.
It's one of the reasons why Rory is so popular, or maybe so polarizing, is he's very honest, and he lets you in. He's an emotional guy. I don't think Scotty. In fact, I know Scotty. I've interviewed him after a couple of his wins, and every time you interview him, it's like, yeah, I don't really think about all that stuff. I'm just trying to shoot the best score that I can shoot, and yeah, me and Randy are kind of working on the same things, and just trying to work out with Ted out there, and execute the golf shots when I can. That's my Scotty Scheffler impression. But it's never like, yeah, I thought about my place. Rory's the other end of the spectrum. He thinks about his place in the game. He thinks about legacy, and he knows that his place in the game and that his legacy are secured. He's an all-time great no matter what happens. So I just thought that was a really interesting sort of look into the mind of Rory McIlroy, and admitting to us that, it was a little bit harder to practice now than it was a couple weeks ago. Not saying that it will always be harder to practice. It's not saying that he won't rediscover that fire. He's been very resilient in his career, and he's talked at length about how one of the things he cares most about, or that he takes most pride in, I should say, is the resilience that he's shown in his career. But, he's a human being, and he's dealing with complicated emotions after completing his lifelong dream. Joseph Boza says he's heard a rumor that Rory McIlroy is moving to the UK. I know with his wife, I know they are building a house there. That is not a secret. Mitchell Morris, this is why I couldn't believe when people said that he was going to go on a spree of winning more majors. He and Scotty have very different mindsets. Rory thinks big picture. Scotty just goes to work. It's an excellent point, Michael Morris. It's an excellent point. I think one of the reasons why is because we just assumed that Rory would be in the same mindset just without pressure, but he's obviously not in the same mindset. Scotty's very simple. It's a quiet mind. I don't think Rory McIlroy has a particularly quiet mind. Okay, we're going to move on now to talk about some of the kids. So there are 3 players who are making their debuts as PGA Tour members this week through the PGA Tour U program, and they've done it 3 different ways. So David Ford, University of North Carolina, senior, he won the PGA Tour U list, which is a list of the top seniors. UNC did not make it to the national championship. It was an upset. They were like number 10, and they didn't make it through their regional, and he didn't qualify as the top individual from his regional. It's kind of complicated, but basically he just didn't make it to nationals. So he got a sponsor invite, turned professional, and got a sponsor invite into Colonial, but missed the cut. But he wasn't going to get any FedEx Cup points because he wasn't officially a member until today. This is the week. RBC Canada, this is the week that all the PGA Tour kids make their debut because it's the first tournament after NCAAs. So I believe Ludwig Åberg made his debut at the RBC Canadian Open, and Michael Thorbjornsen made his debut at the RBC Canadian Open. And now we've got 3. So we've got David Ford, we've got Luke Clanton, who is hyped to debut as probably in a decade just because of all the top 10s that he had. 2 runner-up finishes as an amateur is absolutely absurd. Number 1 amateur in the world when he turned pro. And he got his card through PGA Tour U Accelerated, locked it up this year, which is a list for really high-achieving underclassmen. If they reach a certain threshold, 20 points, and points, so you get a point for winning this tournament, or you get a point for winning that tournament. You can go right away. Luke locked his up. Remember, it was at the Cognizant in his hometown event. It was a really nice scene. He goes professional. He decides to go as soon as he can. The third one is Gordon Sargent. And Gordon Sargent locked up his PGA Tour card through PGA Tour U Accelerated in the fall of his junior year, in the fall of 2023. So he could have debuted with Michael Thorbjornsen at last year's RBC Canadian Open, this week last year, but he decided to stay. He decided to stay an extra year, and his game fell off a cliff. These are his results, his last results in college. And keep in mind that these are only 3-round events. So 20 over par through 3 rounds, 12 over par, 6 over par. It got so bad that Vanderbilt didn't even bring him to the regional. He wasn't in the top 5 or even a substitute spot. And they didn't bring him they qualified for the Nationals at Omni La Costa. Didn't bring him to Omni La Costa. Like, that's how bad it got. And he's making his debut this week because he graduated from Vanderbilt. He's done with his college career, and so now the clock's run out basically. And he did his introductory press conference today, and this what an interesting emotional cocktail that's got to be, right? Like, he was the number 1 amateur in the world. He won NCAAs as a freshman. He played in the Masters in 2023, I believe it was, because if you win NCAAs and you're not and you stay an amateur by the time the Masters rolls around, so you're not going to be a senior, because if you're a senior and you win NCAAs, you're going to turn pro right away. So if a non-senior wins NCAAs, they get a Masters invite. So Hiroshi Tai got it. Gordon Sargent got it, and then Michael Asasso, who was a junior when he just won from Ole Miss, he's going to get it. So, and Gordon Sargent was the talk of the town that week. He played a practice round with Rory McIlroy. He was hitting it, in ungodly places. So you're the toast of the town. You're the first one to get your PGA Tour card through PGA Tour. You accelerated, and you decide to stay, and your game falls off a cliff. Now, he was compensated very well for this. We've had Brentley on our show tell us, many times how much money, speculate how much money he might have gotten for staying at Vanderbilt. So it's not like a pre-NIL era. You wouldn't. It would be a really, really difficult to leave all that money on the table. He still got paid. He still signed a Nike deal, a Titleist deal. He's actually in the Titleist commercial. But lost his game. So almost, I was thinking today, is it better to lose your game while you're still in college? Because he gets a year and a half of an exemption. If you get PGA Tour U accelerated or PGA Tour, you win PGA Tour U. So all three of the guys who are debuting this week, they are exempt through the end of the 2026 season. Not just the end of the 2025 season, 2026 season. So if Gordon Sargent had turned pro and lost his game, that clock would have run out. Now the clock resets. The other side of it is, maybe if he didn't have college, the game would have been different. So there's no easy answer, and that's basically what he had to say. So he was asked about his decision. Here he is.
I knew it was the right decision, and I knew it wasn't going to be a perfect answer. I knew if I stayed, there were going to be times where I wish I would have left, and if I left, there would have been times I wish I wanted to stay. But I knew that if I stayed, there were ways I could get better on the golf course, off the golf course. And hopefully that pays dividends down the road.
Now, I'm not saying that he didn't get better off the golf course, but he didn't get better on the golf course. I think going from number one player in college, toast of the town, to not even making the traveling squad, he didn't get better on the golf course. He probably learned a lot of lessons about struggles. And the more I think of it, the more I think it's not the worst thing in the world to stay and have that struggle and go through that before you get to the PGA Tour, because there's no guarantee that if he had turned pro, the same exact thing wouldn't have happened. But yeah, just a really interesting I would say unprecedented situation here with Gordon Sargent, and a guy who's playing in his first PGA Tour, getting onto the PGA Tour and playing as a PGA Tour member when you are playing the worst golf of your career. Mostly if a guy gets to the PGA Tour as a rookie, he's either gotten through Q school, so he's playing well, or he's gotten through Corn Ferry, or he's gotten it through non-member points. You usually start your PGA Tour career on a heater. This guy is starting his PGA Tour career on a very, very cold streak. I'm going to look over at some chats here. He hasn't done anything in golf or in media since winning the Masters because he's taking care of family stuff and spending time there. Don't forget the guy was on the brink of divorce not long ago. PT says the slope of the course. They gave them a gift at this course, giving away birdies leading into Oakmont, weak course choice. I don't know. Says PT, I've heard good stuff from on site. I mean, Rory did say it's kind of a prototypical TPC layout, which I guess is kind of a underhand. That's a bit of a diss. Let's call it what it is. Another guy making his debut, Luke Clanton. So I was confused because I thought he was into the U.S. Open, but he played in the sectional on Monday in Canada. What happened was he was into the U.S. Open by winning the McCormack medal, which is most weeks at number one in the world amateur rankings, but he had to stay amateur. So once he turned pro, he lost that. So that's why he played in the sectional. Did not get through, but is making his debut this week. And the PGA Tour, of course, pairs him with Rory McIlroy and Ludwig Åberg, the two biggest names in the field. And this is what PGA Tour U is all about. Rory was talking, and we don't have this clip, but Rory was talking about how, PGA Tour U, he said he would give it to 5 guys. He thinks instead of just one PGA Tour status, he thinks that new blood and recycling and youthful energy is super important. And it's been a huge success for the PGA Tour to build new stars through this program. So here is Luke Clanton, and this was just, you could tell he's ready for this moment. He knew it was coming. He had some prepared remarks, but I enjoyed watching it.
Wow. Today, my dream becomes a reality. I'm a professional golfer on the PGA Tour. But before I say anything about my future, I want to say something about my foundation. I'm a proud son of David and Rhonda Clanton.
He's getting choked up.
Grateful brother of Ray and Abby Clanton. I'm a product.
Just good stuff. Rooting for him. I mean, Rick Gehman picked him to win the tournament, plus 3,500. He's already finished second in 2 PGA Tour events. The guys who played with him say, he's one of the. He's a sure thing. He is a sure thing because he's already been a sure thing. He's already had a ton of success on the PGA Tour, so I don't think anyone is concerned about Luke Clanton. I'm just excited to watch him. I'm just excited. I mean, who knows? This is Ludwig. Ludwig turned pro this week and made the Ryder Cup in the same time period. Now, who's to say Luke Clanton can't do the same thing? I'm not predicting that he will, but it's possible, right? If he finishes third this week and then second next week and then wins a tournament, and like it's like, okay, well, this guy, it's absolutely. If you were in the betting markets, the number wouldn't be as crazy as you would want it to be, I don't think. Speaking of college players and making interesting decisions, Josele Ballester, the guy next to me, I thought it was Jose Luis Ballester. We'll just go with Ballester, the reigning U.S. amateur champion who took a piss in Race Creek. That is true. At the 2025 Masters, has declined his Corn Ferry card. A move to Liv Golf is imminent and could debut as early as this week. And it is imminent because it's already happened. He has joined Sergio Garcia's Fireballs team. I was seeing a lot. I think he's playing this week in Virginia. I was seeing a lot of pictures of him and Sergio from a young age. They're close. Sergio's been a mentor to him. I don't think it was a surprise when he turned down Corn Ferry status that he was going to Live. There's a little bit of a ASU Live thing going on. David Puig was in a very similar situation to Josele. Josele is the reigning U.S. amateur champion, so it's a little bit different. He played in the Masters here, missed the cut. But another top-ranked Spanish amateur goes to Arizona State and then decides to go to Live right away. There's guaranteed money involved. That's how it goes with Live. Everyone is entitled to make their own choice. Whether it's the right choice, we'll see. It's last year. You would have said they're going to come together. Friday is the 2-year anniversary. That's wild. I just looked at the calendar, and Friday is the 2-year anniversary of the framework agreement. And nothing's happened. And all the word, we had Josh Carpenter from Sports Business Journal on the show recently. All the word is that there's absolutely no progress. They've broken down. I mean, Liv just announced a big thing with Salesforce. So an agreement with a massive, massive company. It doesn't sound like they're going down. Doesn't sound like they're about to fold up shop. And Josele, I don't think he would have been that cheap. Reigning U.S. amateur champion, top 10 amateur in the world. I don't remember exactly what he was, number 5, number 6, something like that. He finished in the top 5 of NCAAs, bona fide great player, and young too, not a guy in the back half of his career. So, there would have definitely, been a pretty hefty price tag there. I don't know if he's thinking about, I really want to hang out with Rom and Sergio, and this is all going to come together, or maybe, the money was just too much to pass off. But it doesn't seem like these two are coming together anytime soon. If they're still signing, this is a guy that the PGA Tour would have been playing on the Corn Ferry Tour this year. We're going to take it home. I've actually really enjoyed this, you guys. I've really enjoyed this little Wednesday show. He could be a captain's pick for sure, says Joseph Bozo. Luke has the dream start. Back 9, the par 5s back-to-back, 18-1. I'm really excited to watch Clanton, Oberg, and Rory tomorrow. Omni says, Luke Clanton played my home course when he was in high school or something and hit his drive off the first tee farther than I hit my second shot if my drive somehow hits the fairway. Laz says, this is real time. Oh, this is real time, baby. We might just be adding a little Wednesday night to the diet. I was thinking, it's a long time to wait. It's a long time to wait till Monday. We're going to finish with a bit of upsetting news. Theegala has been struggling this year, really struggling this year. Made the President's Cup, which was a big step for him in his career. Had a great year last year. I think he finished 3rd in the Tour Championship. And remember, that was including a 2-shot penalty that no one saw that ended up costing him $1.5 million. Wasn't playing well at the start of the year, kind of faded from Ryder Cup contention, but now says, and then he's faded for Ryder Cup contention, and now there's injury issues. The neck has been an issue. He's had to withdraw a number of times now, and it would appear that he's not going to play in the U.S. Open. Let's read the statement. Very disappointed to report that with a heavy heart, I had to withdraw from one of my favorite events of the year. The RBC Canadian Open always treats players so well, and I was really excited to play the new venue this year. The place looks beautiful, and I've heard so many great things about the golf course and the facility overall. Here's the money part. Doctors have advised me to put the clubs away for a little while. Don't like hearing that. As I get treatment and some rest for an injury I've been battling the last few weeks, so this one stings. A little while would make it hard to believe that Theegala is going to tee it up in the U.S. Open. And here's another guy that a poor year, I'm thinking of Billy Horschel, and an injury have removed from Ryder Cup contention. I would say that Sahith, as of right now, his chances are on life support, if not completely dead. Horschel and Sahith were guys that maybe at the beginning of the year you would have put on this U.S. team, and that's why, this U.S. team, especially the back half, is going to be filled with a lot of guys who you didn't think were going to be on the Ryder Cup team, I'll tell you that much. I'm thinking of Ben Griffin. I'm thinking of Andrew Novak. I'm thinking of Maverick McNeely, who's been playing awesome this year. Some of the blue chippers, like a Tony Finau, is not playing super well. Like a Theegala is not playing super well and is now injured. Like a Billy Horschel. Like, do you want to trust Jordan Spieth? I think that's why I think this U.S. Ryder Cup team is going to be. It's going to be a new group. It's going to be a younger group. It's going to be a more inexperienced group. Oh my God, that was disgusting. Please don't clip that. And yeah, super fun, guys. Getting to preview RBC Canadian Open with you guys. I've enjoying this on Wednesday night. We'll see you back for the watch along on Sunday, and then we'll do normal dog on Monday. And it's U.S. Open. U.S. Open's coming up. I'm starting to feel it. I'm working on my rankings. I'm working on some stuff for next week.